Now, this is the biggest issue, as a lot of these property management owners are like, well, you're done, we're good, Avila. And we're like, all right, cool, we'll step back. No problem to us. But then when these squatters come right back in, right, or start stealing tools because the construction guys are in there, or now they won't leave, right? They'll go, and a lot of these people, they have nothing to lose.
Right.
So they'll go into a building, be like, I'm gonna sit right here, I'm not leaving. Go ahead, call PD. I know they're not gonna show up for a couple hours. It's not a life-threatening emergency.
Welcome back to Cash Flow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss, and today my guest is Anthony Avila. Anthony, how you doing?
I'm good. Yourself? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing excellent. Thanks for coming on. I'm super excited that I get to have you on and sit down. I think our guests our audience is going to get a lot out of this conversation.
Yes, sir.
Specifically, kind of what you do in the property world is something that not a lot of people have your skill set. So I want to get started. Tell me, what's the name of your company?
My name of the company is SDPI Security.
SDPI Security. What specifically do you focus on?
So what we focus on are problem properties. We specialize in properties that have gang issues, drug problems, prostitution, squatters, illegal dwellers, as you would call them.
I like it. I like that we hit right to the gang activity, squatters, illegal dwellers, holdover,
yes,
tenancy. Talk to me a little bit about, and the reason I'm so excited is that for all my years, I never knew of a group or a company that provides the service that you do. So I'm really excited about this. Talking about how'd you get started in this industry?
So I've actually been in this field kind of on and off in the first responder field. I did firefighting, PI worked for corrections, moved back to San Diego. Actually worked for a pretty prominent family here in San Diego, California. They own private properties, commercial properties, residential properties. And as I was trying to dive down the security path and securing some of their properties, I started to realize these issues that they would constantly run into, right? Illegal dwellers, holdovers, squatters. And I started to learn the tenants and owners' rights. There's an actual, you can find on California, tenants and owners' rights, that's very educational. And so I started learning kind of the loopholes that these people were going through to enter a property. And if they don't know what they're doing, there are loopholes. You as an owner and as a property manager, you can get back your property if you have the right set of people and the right set of skills.
Talk to me a little bit about mentorship. I mean, it must take a lot to be able to step into this kind of protection environment. Who were your mentors? Who helped shape your mindset when it comes to being in the protection field?
I would say off the top of my head, one always sits with me and resonates with me is my brother Maxwell Thomas Zacher. He recently passed away January 2nd. He was a federal agent. He'd be 38 this September 15th. My best friend, my brother, I've known him for 34 years I've known this guy. And, he helped me just grow as a person. And so these last 5 years, I want to say, has been a pinnacle for both of us. He did an Ironman just out of the drop of a dime.
Oh, that's awesome.
He applied to every agency, got picked up for Border Patrol, ranked top in his class, Mr. 300. Dude's a beast. And he's always pushed me to be the best version of myself, right? And always lead by example. We stand by integrity and courage. Those are the two philosophies on my business is integrity and courage.
Right.
It's what we do when nobody's looking, right? And the courage to do what others won't. And then obviously one of our biggest supporters is San Diego Police Department.
Right.
We've been working very closely with them, Sheriff's Department, and other state and local federal agencies. Officer Omar, who's a CRO in Southeastern Division.
CRO, what is CRO?
So a CRO is a community relations officer.
Got it. So and this is how you've gotten tight with the
San Diego
departments.
PD.
Right.
Yeah. So I entered a property over there on Euclid and Logan. If everybody knows, Lincoln Park, Skyline area, very prominent area. Rich history for good and bad. So I remember sitting down with one of the Mr. Omar at the CRO. I was like, man, I would love to build a partnership with San Diego Police Department. I have this vision. And I was like, what would it take? And this is down during 2012, 21, 2002, with all the stuff going on in media and the negative limelight on law enforcement. And I remember him telling me, like, we need a trusted partner. We need somebody that can give us, not only just for law enforcement, but for the community, an agency or a company that the community and law enforcement can trust together.
Wow, you were able to be that bridge between the local departments and the community to help build trust. That's amazing.
Yes, sir.
When you encounter, and I obviously I know your job is dangerous, but when you encounter these adversarial situations, what's your philosophy? How do you go about it? Where, I mean, a lot of us just run. So how do you go about it when you're asked to go be there, be in the fire?
So for me, and I think I've just learned this growing up in the streets. My background is I grew up in gangs. I've done it all. I did the total U-turn, right? And so I've learned a lot. It's almost like they say compassionate policing, right? At the end of the day, we're all human beings. They're going through whatever they're going through,
right?
Okay? And when I enter whatever situation I enter in, who knows what that person's gone through? Who knows if they've lost their mother, they've lost their brother, if they've lost everything? I don't know. So when I step into these situations, I need to understand at the end of the day that they're human, right? And we both bleed, we both shed tears. It is what it is, and so I go in with that. And my guys, they teach them that too. Like, we got to be compassionate, but also understand that we have a professional job to do.
We're there to do a job, but we're humans and you are humans, and we're going to treat you
correct.
What a great mindset. I want to dive in a little bit into some of the situations that you've come across. I know that our audience is like, they own properties. They own everything from, investments to flips to long-term rentals and short-term rentals. So I want to have you take us down that road of some examples of what you've seen, specifically you working here in San Diego. So give me one that comes to mind.
So one recently we did over there in Southeast San Diego. It was 10 units, 10 individual little houses.
Got it.
And 5 of the tenants have been there for years, like good 7-10 years, like good, solid tenants, been there long time, always pay the rent, never have an issue. They deal directly with the owner, great owner. And then there's the other 5 units on it, all taken over, right? Taken over by homeless, transients. We got gang activity, we got prostitution, we got drug, and on top of that, they've destroyed these units. Like, you got feces, trash everywhere. It cost the owner a good $150,000 after we went in there to just rebuild, to remodel his units, over $150K.
How was he able to find you so you can get involved and help solve this problem?
So again, we're in the state of California, right? California is one of the hardest states. Like, as an owner, I'm starting to realize you get less rights, unfortunately. True. And I'm trying to be careful and tread lightly here. What I'm going to say is, but that's the truth, right? You as an owner, you have to do all these things, check all these boxes, make sure you make these payments. But at the end of the day, you can lose it all. You can have somebody come in there and take over, and and sometimes you feel like there's nothing you can do. So with this, back to this property, the owner of the property reached out to San Diego PD. Okay, and so there's 3 things for San Diego Police Department to go in there, right? And it's called established residency in the state of California. Okay, for an officer, for any law enforcement officer to go inside a property and be like, hey, this is an illegal dweller. Got it. Okay, there's 3 things, right? That this tenant or squatter needs to prove that he or she is a legal resident. Okay. It is have most likely received mail through the U.S. Postal Service. They need to receive some type of mail inside their name at the U.S. Postal Service. Got it. Number 2, pay for a utility and have it in their name, or pay rent. Got it. Number 2. Number 3 is have a property, be on that property for more than 30 days, or have a lease in their name. Right. Okay. Now, for these 3 things, if an officer shows up to the property and that squatter or resident or tenant has those things, it then becomes a civil matter. Okay. Sheriff or police officer like, okay. Yeah. Like hey, man,
go through the court process to handle it.
And here's the thing. right now we're in the times where law enforcement is so understaffed nationwide.
Right.
So it's not that now I'm sure if the officer had enough time, mind you, they have 100 calls going out.
Right.
So they don't have the time to sit there and go and check off each box and look through the mail
Parse through the
and
information,
argue with the individual and
Right.
prove this and prove like they just don't have that time.
Right.
While we're dealing with a squatter, there's a shooting or a stabbing or a robbery.
They're getting calls and calls on the radio, and they're just like, hey,
they
there's
need to
nothing I can
balance
do.
out what's, and it's not that that's not important.
Right.
It's just that they also have to attend to these other calls.
There's definitely priorities.
Yes.
That, shootings, robberies. There are a ton of other priorities unfortunately,
Yes.
for landlords over squatters. That makes a lot of sense. Look, as a landlord myself, I think it's one of the most frustrating things, but I do empathize with the police or sheriff's department because they just don't have enough time and resources to be able to figure this out. But when they push it to the civil side and it goes to the court, that could take forever.
Oh, again, it can take 6 months to a year.
At least.
At minimum.
At least.
I've seen properties where we had one in Logan where it was 3 units and some gang members took over and they had it for 5 years.
I just did.
5
we just
years.
did an eviction that was 2 years and 7 months. So
Yeah.
I totally understand. And again, when people know the system, they can work their way around it. So in this scenario, the property owner, he was at his wit's end.
Yeah.
And so he
So-
reaches out to you, or how's that work?
So what happened is he reached out to San Diego Police Department. San Diego PD came. Obviously, they didn't have the time.
Right.
You know, they see what's going on. Mind you, they want. I want to make it clear. They want nothing more to do to clear this property up.
Right.
Because that's less police calls they're going to get from that property.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sure it was
Right?
a hub of wonderful activity, right?
Exactly. So this owner ended up reaching out to the city council, and again, SDPI, we attend every meeting, captain's meetings, city council meetings. We're very involved with the community. We care about the community. So the city council reached out to me like, hey, there's this property. Here's the owner. Can I give him your number? I was like, yes, absolutely. Let's see if we can be some of assistance. The owner called me immediately. I met with the owner that day. We signed the dotted line.
Right.
And so this is where I take the time, right? I go in there, I do my homework. I sit on the property, I
Nice.
find out who's staying there. And this is the biggest issue too.
It's almost
You
like surveillance. Like
yeah,
you're like,
you got to
gotta do
sit
your
there and you got to
stakeout,
squat.
gotta
Yeah,
figure it out.
you got to figure out who's there, how long they've been there, do they have legal dwelling? You know, I check the mailboxes. I check my boxes. Just like PD would, I check those same boxes.
Right.
So now I've done my homework. And once I've realized that none of these boxes are checked off, I'm good to go. At that point, I'll go into the property and I make my presence known, SDPI Security, you know, any illegal dwellers here need to be removed or we trespass them.
What does that look like? Is it you by yourself? Are you
No.
going with a team?
So-
how does it work?
I go in there with the team. I have a 4-man team. We're all suited and booted, right? Vest. We have our non-lethal, lethal. We're fully licensed. We go into these properties. We make our presence known. And it's not to intimidate. It's more of a safety. For their safety and our safety, right?
Absolutely.
We don't know what we're running into, and we don't know what's going on in their head, right?
Absolutely.
And we obviously, at the end of the day, hopefully we can get them the help that they need.
Right.
You know? So we go in there. Pretty strong. 4-man team. I call San Diego Police Department. Hey, I've done my homework. I've checked off the boxes. None of these people are supposed to be there. I'm going to go in there and trespass them. Nice. Can I get some units to be on standby?
Nice.
Hopefully they do. If not, once we remove them, if some put up a fight, then we detain them, bring them to the curbside. PD will come and take over. Wow. And so we go in there, and 9 out of 10, a lot of the squatters, they leave.
They just
right?
leave.
Yeah, they know the gig's up. Okay.
They don't want that smoke after they
yeah.
come in and they see you. They're like, all right,
Exactly.
It's time to move on.
And the thing main too is our approach, right? We go in there with the understanding of, hey, we know what's going on. And plus we also give them resources. We tell them about programs that are out there. Again, we're so involved with the community. We give them sheets of papers that show, Victory Outreach and St. Vincent de Paul and all these programs. We give them like, hey, you can call them.
Wow.
And here are the resources. Here are the addresses. Here are the phone numbers. So you're not just because a lot of them, where do I go?
That's so important.
Yeah.
Some people are taking advantage, but a lot of people just don't have anywhere to go. That's
they don't.
great that you provide those resources.
And so we give that resource.
Everybody just thinks of Big Anthony and his team coming in and busting heads, and that's not the reality.
No, not at all.
I love it. So in this situation, you went in strong. Of the units that were occupied, how did it pretty much break out? Everybody just left, or is somebody getting more time? Or?
Majority of them, there was 3 units that were completely trashed.
Right.
We found one with a female and a male in it. They packed up, left. Another one was a mental health issue. We've dealt with her with another property. So with her, we went in there. Wow. We, let her kind of get her things together. We gave her some food. We gave her some fruit and stuff like that. We give them like this little care packet, like here,
right.
Hiding stuff. Like, we care. Sorry, it's
right.
the run's
amazing.
over.
It's amazing.
But here you go. We did our part,
right.
Walked her to the curbside. She left. And then we had a gentleman that persisted on he knew his rights as a squatter, right? Again, this is where it's my job. My job is to check off those boxes.
Right.
I went in there before I even waste my time. I go in there and check off these boxes.
Right.
I found out who the individual was. I realized that he did not have any mail there. I realized that he did not have a bill in his name there. I realized that he was not there more than 30 days. He did not have a lease in his name.
Right.
So once I checked off those things, I called San Diego Police Department. I said, hey, sir. And they came. I showed them my proof. Like, hey, I've done all my due diligence. Right? They said, okay. They go in there. We knock on the door. The guy finally realizes that we mean business. The guy pops the door. He comes out. We give him 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just like an eviction, 15, 20 minutes, grab your stuff, help him move his stuff, right? Again, because we're not trying to bully anybody. Bring him to the curbside. We took over the property, and then we held the property.
So talk about that real quick, because everybody just thinks like, okay, then you smile and wave and you leave, but there's more to it than that.
Oh, yeah. So we use the terminology kind of like left of bang, which is clear, hold, build, and then we added maintain. Okay. So we go in there, we clear it out. We hold it, and what I mean by hold is then the construction team comes and they rebuild, remodel, right? And that takes some time. That takes between 30 to 60 to 90 days, if you have 7 days a week construction crew coming in there working. So we have to sit there on that property 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Make sure
nobody comes, because these tenants will come back.
Absolutely.
And this is where the biggest misconception is, oh, you just go in there, Avila clears them out, SDPI does their job, thank you, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
No, you got to be consistent with this. Maintain, right? So we cleared, we held it, we built it, now we got to maintain it. Now, this is the biggest issue, as a lot of these property management owners are like, well, you're done, we're good, Avila, and we're like, all right, cool, we'll step back. No problem to us. But then when these squatters come right back in, right, or start stealing tools because the construction guys are in there, or now they won't leave, right? They'll go, and a lot of these people, they have nothing to lose.
Right.
So they'll go into a building, be like, I'm going to sit right here. I'm not leaving. Go ahead, call PD.
Yeah.
I know they're not going to show up for a couple hours. It's not a life-threatening emergency,
That's amazing. So at the end of the day, when the client brings you on, you guys do an amazing job connecting both with the police department and working with the locals to move out these squatters. Property gets put back together. What do you think the cost is of what it took to actually get this removed?
So the cost for all this, I put a little scenario together for this. I apologize.
No worries.
So, for instance, let's take an example of a one-bedroom apartment, right, or one-bedroom house. In San Diego, for a one-bedroom house, about $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, we're going to step back and look at it from the owner's perspective, okay? So that's $2,000 a month he can charge for rent. Then we have the insurance, okay? The mortgage, $1,000 a month, okay? Then we have your insurance, about $200 a month.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just say this is 12 months, okay? Plus property damage, about $40K. And 12 months, that's $78K he has lost.
Yeah.
Mind you, every month, every day that he does not have possession of his property or his property's taken over, he's losing that money every single day.
And I'm sure the neighbors are thrilled that the person next door is just doing damage and causing a nuisance.
Exactly. And here's the thing, too. If it's in a unit like this property, well, then those tenants that are next to those units, they have a right to be like, hey, I want my bill lowered.
Yeah.
I want my rent lowered.
Yeah.
Like, I got crackheads
great
breaking into my unit. I got people just running through I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
My kids don't feel safe. My family don't safe. My property isn't safe.
Right.
So then now you're losing value on those properties.
Yeah. That's a great point that you bring up, is that then your good tenants, not only are they upset, but they probably want to leave or they want to reduce rent, and that's just going to perpetuate the cycle. So.
100%. So that runs you almost to $100K in 1 year.
Right.
which then, this is not even including legal fees, calling a lawyer, dealing with that. And you and I both know that dealing with a lawyer and hiring an attorney, like if you get one name wrong, or if in that process another squatter rolls in there, well, you have to start that process all over again. It's a perpetual cycle, and it's a cycle where the owner or the property management feel like they're at a loss, and that's unfortunate, especially because we're in San Diego, one of the most prominent cities to live in, one of the most expensive cities to live in.
Absolutely.
So people work 3 jobs just to live, just to take care of their family, and then somebody just rolls in and takes over.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's terrible. So there's another side of the coin to this too. There's that side when a landlord has a property before it gets to this, all right, and they want to prevent this, so they reach out to you. Talk to me about a scenario where, or walk me through a scenario where you've been asked to protect the property. How do you go about that? Are you just standing there all day, every day, or like how do you best approach it?
So it all depends on what the property is. So if we're talking about a property that's maybe having like consistent issues with, loitering, partying, gang interactions. We'll do which we call as kind of cleanup. We'll go in there for a good 30 days and we'll make our presence known. We'll patrol the property in and out. We'll sit on the property a couple hours a day, really make our presence. And usually that deters it. But again, going back to the maintaining, right? This is the biggest point. Like we can go in there, we can clear house, but we need to maintain it. It's like when you buy a car. Like you can buy a car brand new. But if you don't do an oil change in 6 months to a year, it's going to start running on you. It's going to fall apart, just like your property. You put all this property, buying this property, to rent this property, to make more income, to take care of your family. You need to upkeep that, And this is where a lot of owners and managements forget, or they're like, hey, the job's done. Well, no, we need to maintain it. We need to make a consistent impact. Again, we can go in there, we can go in hard, we can clean it up. Yes, we can do it in one day. But as soon as we leave, and again, you're talking about people that are seasoned people. Like if they've been squatting there or loitering there for months or years, they know the game.
They know what
they know. As soon as PD shows up and removes them, as soon as PD leaves, they'll walk across the street. As soon as PD leaves, they'll come walking right back over to the property. And it's not that PD doesn't care. Again, they're understaffed. They can't sit there and babysit a property. The man hours, the fine, just can't be done.
And it makes sense that, look, right now, especially things have slowed down, but it's going to take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even 4 weeks to rent a property. So if in addition you have to do renovation, you have to do remodels, you're going to have to protect it anywhere from a month to 2 months before at least there's a tenant inside, and that's just a single home. Or if it's in a multifamily, like an apartment community, there's always 1 or 2 vacants. They need a constant presence on there.
Yes, sir.
What's the biggest mistake you see property managers or landlords make when it comes to those kind of scenarios? They just pull out too early, or?
Yeah, so a lot of them is, they pull out too early. They think the job is done. We go in there, we clean house, and they're like, all right, thank you, great. And then it's like they forget everything that transpired to get us there. Again, that's the biggest thing, and the biggest hiccup is they forget what got us to be there, right? Why they decided to sign the dotted lines, right? We showed up there to complete a job, but for us to complete it, especially for these properties, it's consistency. Consistency.
Let me kind of close it down with, I think, one of the biggest questions. So I'm a landlord, a property owner, an investor. I'm listening to this. The first thought is like, it must be thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm not asking you to give your, bottom line price, but what's the general cost for, when you got to clear and do the heavy work versus, let me give you some peace of mind. Let me protect your property for 30 days or so till you get it, the remodel done or get it rented. What does that entail?
So I can't really put a number on it, but all depends on the percentage of the property, how much it brings in, how big this property is. What am I looking at with this property? Am I just dealing with just one squatter? Am I dealing with any squatters? Am I just dealing with, you're leaving on vacation for 30 days and you got some workers working over there, but you don't want them to steal anything, or you don't want nobody to break in while the work's done? It just all depends. But what I can tell you is we are a very reasonable price. And obviously that we are backed by San Diego PD and other agencies. We get our job done.
I love it.
Again, we hold the line,
Well, we talked about how much it costs if you don't do it. And we all know as investors what areas that our properties are targets. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're targets. Whether it be something as simple as somebody loitering, it's a heat wave. Some people they're looking for a place that has electricity to go, camp out and get a roof over their head. Or if it's college kids doing serial partying, hey, they're just going to show up to a property on a Saturday and throw a rager, or it's worse, like I said, transient and drug addicts. So I appreciate all your feedback. I want to close it out by you telling us the biggest lessons you've learned since being in this industry.
I think for me, I've learned that it truly takes a village, right? A community to make these changes, right? Again, like I said, everybody's going through what they're going through, and I've learned for me to be successful and to making a difference, because that's what SDPI stands for. Is
right.
We're here to make a difference. We're not just here about strictly profit, right? We're volunteering. We're doing stuff in the community. We do peace in the park. We just did a gun buyback with San Diego Police Department. We got 120 guns off the streets. Wow. We do the turkey giveaways. We work with Wraparound, the juvenile program. I'm learning as I'm going down this road that it truly takes a partnership, and that's just not just with law enforcement, but with the community. Again, when we're out here and we're working in the community. At the end of the day, even if it's somebody's private property, commercial property, or resident, it's in the community, right? I need the community to know that they can trust us, that we understand that everybody's going through what they're going through, and we're going to be here to help.
In that same vein, when you're talking to landlords, property investors, what's the one thing that you want them to realize before they pick up the phone and call you?
The one thing I would say is it's a process. It takes time. However, I always tell people, look how much you've invested already into your property. Mm-hmm. Buying it, purchasing it, maintaining it, the upkeep. Just like you put in all that time for that, this is going to take time, right? I'm not saying it's going to take a year or years.
Right.
It can be done, but just as much as you put in, we got to put in the same.
I love it. Anthony Avila, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your feedback. I think this is probably one of the most informative episodes we've done. It's really going to help move the needle for landlords, property investors, and clients here in San Diego. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in to Cash Flow. Again, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. We'll see you next time.